And welcome back. We want to go ahead and take you back live to that scene out in Oceanside at the end of the pier where the fire continues to burn. In fact, in our live picture, you can see the flames that were shooting out of the building over there in what was the old Ruby's Diner. And we understand that more help on the ground is now arriving, with a Coast Guard cutter showing up as well to join the other boats out there with water cannons to go ahead and spray the pier out there.
To just regroup, in case you're just now joining us live, or maybe you're in the North County and you're smelling smoke and wondering what this is. A little over an hour ago, we got a report that there was a fire on the Oceanside Pier. And as you can see here, this fire has taken off quickly. Exactly where the fire started on the pier or how remains unknown. Obviously, when they get the fire out, they'll be able to begin an investigation. But as you can see, at the end of the pier, there are a couple of different buildings here. Number one is the old Ruby's Diner restaurant, which was there for more than 2 decades. But it had been vacant for a fairly long time now. The other was an active restaurant, a fish shop known as Brian's Box. That was still a place where people could go and dine. It's unknown if the fire started in either of those 2 restaurants, the former or the vacant one, or perhaps some other way here at the end of the pier.
And Heather, we also understand now that helicopters are on the way to see if they are needed to make drops as well. As we mentioned, kind of a tough spot there, being at the end of the pier, very difficult for crews that are coming from the land side to get all the way out to the end there to fight the flames. I did have a chance to check in with Carlene, though. She said that the wind should not be a major factor out there, around 11, 12 miles an hour right now. So that's the good news, because we are seeing heavy winds in our mountain areas, but that is not affecting the coast. So that is helping those crews as well, and definitely a relief for folks living in Oceanside. The last thing you want is those embers to get up into heavy winds and then start blowing all around Oceanside.
Typical, though, with onshore flow, especially right along the coastline, it will blow all of that smoke and, of course, the smell of this fire several miles inland. And we've been getting a lot of calls from concerned viewers into our newsroom wondering what is going on. This is what's going on. As you can see here, we're trying to pull out and give you a little bit of a wider look here as more help begins to arrive via the water. Firefighters trained for this. The Oceanside Fire Department been busy. They put out an initial statement earlier on asking people just to stay away, stay clear, let the first responders get their job done to avoid congestion, especially on the land side of this. But now they're calling in for extra help. As Steve mentioned, the Coast Guard now joining in on this fight. And potentially we could see live here through our Chopper 8 some water drops on this fire from above.
And every so often, as the chopper zooms in, we are still able to see active flames in that area. Because those crews are so busy right now, we have not been able to get an update on, number one, how it started. As we've been talking, we still don't know what the cause is. But number two, if there are any injuries involved, as well. As we mentioned, the Brian Box restaurant was open at the time, open until 6 o'clock. So hopefully everybody who was in that restaurant or any customers were able to get off the pier safely. But usually you do see people fishing out there. As I mentioned earlier, surfers in the water around there. So hopefully at this point, no news is good news on that front.
Yeah, they have, as you mentioned, Steve, and you can see as we're pulling out to a wider shot here, just how huge this pier is. One of the longest piers on the West Coast, and it's beautiful too. It's been restored so many times. In fact, now we're getting an opportunity to see here. It looks like an aerial water drop in order to sort of get an aggressive fight going against this fire. And we'll see if we can see that happen right here on CBS 8.
And usually when we see these helicopters come by, they'll take a pass through just to make sure they know exactly where to drop, and then we'll circle around. So there he goes. He already dropped. A lot easier to do that from up above than from the edge of the pier.
Yeah,
and he can hit exactly where they need to go, because we've seen those flames in the middle area where it's tough to shoot those water cannons from the down below. Remember, the water a lot lower than the pier, so it's tough for them to see exactly where they need to go. But from up above, those helicopters can drop exactly. And the precision, we've seen these helicopters so many times in fires across the county. Their ability to drop in just the right spot, even when there is just a little bit of wind, is extremely impressive. And it looks like they had a really good target there, because we're kind of seeing some of the smoke draw down just a little bit.
It's always interesting when we cover fires and they start to make these aerial drops. They have to take several minutes away to go refill the water at the nearest water source. That obviously will not be a problem today. Dipping right into the ocean, I presume, and being able to spray water on it at rapid fire. But the flames are stubborn here. I mean, we have seen active flames for well over an hour now here at the tip of the Oceanside Pier. And you have to wonder after a while what sort of structural damage could potentially be happening. Obviously, firefighters being extra careful not to approach the fire from an area that would potentially be compromised here. And that's why they're taking this water approach. The smoke just making things absolutely unbearable as far as visibility is concerned on the east side of the pier.
Yeah, you can see those flames definitely shooting out there clearly in your shot there. And the question now becomes, what was inside that Ruby's Diner as well? What kind of chemicals are now burning? What is exactly in that smoke as well? All questions that we're going to have to wait to get answered until crews can get up there and get more answers. But first, get those flames out.
This pier has had its fair share of, sadly, some catastrophes over the years. Not necessarily a fire to this magnitude, but storm damage that has created so much damage on this pier. And this community has been very resilient, raising money over the course of years to restore this pier, not just once or twice. This pier has gone under 6 different restorations in about the century that it's been around for. The last major one was back in the mid-'80s or so, when folks in Oceanside were able to raise millions of dollars for pier restoration. And this is certainly a tough scene to see this fire rip through the end of the pier, and we don't know what kind of damage it's causing to the rest of it.
Let's go ahead now and bring Carlene in to answer a few questions about the conditions out there. You know, April showers are what we like, and we did have some showers earlier today. So hopefully that is helping these crews as well. But what are they dealing with out there, Carlene?
Well, right now we're talking about some wind speeds that are picking up, mainly with those gusts. And as you had mentioned and referred to earlier, Steve, was the fact that some of those gusts were picking up around 10 miles per hour. We actually have one of our models that gets information directly from the Oceanside Pier as well as for the airport. And so when we're looking at the current wind gusts in the area, you're talking about 10 miles per hour. You're talking about 17 miles per hour as well. Now, that's not necessarily going to be a factor when it comes to like really strong winds. We've been talking about that wind advisory, as mentioned, favoring the mountains and the desert, but you still get that sea breeze that develops around this time of the day. So a lot of that smoke that we're actually seeing in this image right now is just moving inland. And so if you are in the area, we always talk about this when we start to get brush fires around our county. If you smell smoke and you suffer from upper respiratory illness or issues, you should not be outside. You should limit any outdoor activity because we now have particulates in the air. That's what we're talking about when we say the 2.5 p.m. You basically have that in the air because we're now dealing with smoke and particles. Also don't know what caused this fire, so potentially even some chemicals. And so if you are in the area, please stay away. And as mentioned, if you do suffer from upper respiratory issues, that you smell smoke, you should not be outside right now. And as they had mentioned, just probably staying back because you definitely don't want to hinder any of the efforts to fight this fire in that area. So please be mindful of that. And as you can see, yeah, it is moving inland with that smoke because we do have that afternoon sea breeze that is developing, and we're continuing to see that.
Yeah, Carlene, you brought up a lot of great points there for folks, number one, to stay away, and number two, we don't really know what is in that smoke. So it is best to go ahead and stay away. And if you do have breathing troubles and you're up in the Oceanside area, this would be a good time also to go ahead and close your windows so that smell and the smoke doesn't get into your home as well. We're gonna go ahead, step aside for just a quick minute. We will gather our thoughts, get some more information from the crews out there, and we will join you back here live on the 4 after this.